Today is going to have math, so if math hurts your heads, hang on. But I'll try to guide you through it. What I'm going to go through actually is what I teach customers when I work one-on-one with them for weeks and months as we go forward, and really helping them go to the next level, graduating out of small to large. I'm going to try to shove all of that into 30 minutes. So hang on and come back and watch it at slow speed or something. But let me share my screen here really quick. This week, I'm doing all screen sharing. Okay, today we're going to talk about the federal market sales pipeline. And in particular, we're going to be talking about KPIs, key performance indicators. And the thing to keep in mind about key performance indicators is that they're measuring your success of your sales efforts. And the idea of KPIs, key performance, is it's not measuring unnecessary performance, right? It's not unnecessary performance indicators. It's not wasted performance indicators. It's key performance. If you perform these key activities, you're going to lead to sales success. And so that's the whole idea right behind KPIs, is measuring the success of your efforts, not tracking on anything else. And this is really important. I've been in sales for decades, and this is a classic thing with us salespeople, people who truly just built a career on sales, and you're in there. We get measured sometimes doing the wrong things. And the company is encouraging that, measuring activity that's not related to sales. So what I call administrative tasks. But it's important to remember that what gets measured gets done. So whether your company is measuring you or whether you're measuring yourself, make sure you're only working on the things that if you do them, it will lead to your sales success. An example is giving me excessive reporting requirements on something. Another example that I personally hate is a capture plan that's in a PowerPoint and it's got all these slides. That is way too complicated for a salesperson whose primary talent and skill set is talking to people, engaging them in discussions, and learning about goals and conversations. And so it's really important for us to pay attention to that we're measuring the right things. As we go through this, if you haven't been aware of this already, there's some reasons you want to pay attention to why pipelines are so valuable. And the first and foremost is that they're the accurate prediction of the revenue you're going to achieve. It's not just setting goals, but when you look at your pipeline and you can trust your pipeline, then you can predict how much money you're going to be making this year. Revenue recognizes what I call it, right? How much money is coming in this year? How much is coming out next year and the year after based on your pipeline, how strong that pipeline is. And so pipelines are really important. And also because they're not just used by you from a sales perspective, business developer capture, but it's also used by leadership, small business owners and other leaders. It's used by HR. If they're thinking about staffing and recruiting, that takes time. Talent acquisition is one of the biggest challenges in the government and industry. And so it takes time to find the right people to join. So they need early heads up, and the pipeline gives them that early heads up. They're like, okay, this is the type of work I'm looking for a subject matter expert on, or a person who can come in and do that. And service delivery as well. They got to prepare to, do I need to shift around team members to put an company experienced person on a new project and backfill an existing project, things like that. And so it's used by other people in the company. And the last thing is it really helps you focus your efforts. If you don't have a pipeline, most importantly, just having it, forget about the fact that it's great, right? If you don't have a sales pipeline, then what we end up doing sometimes is everything. We're going everywhere and doing everything. We're targeting, not even targeting, right? We're just going to every single agency. We're reacting to every single opportunity. We think it's good when we say, hey, we just put in 50 opportunities, or we're doing 40 responses a month. That's everything, everywhere, all at once, right? And we don't want to be doing that. It's good for the movies. It's not good for a sales pipeline. So you want your efforts focused down, and a pipeline helps you do that. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily federal sales training, where I provide tips for success on the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When you follow a process A to Z, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results, and that's what I want for you. That predictable part is what I just talked about a minute ago. Everybody needs predictable results in your company. Put your company name into the chat with 2 or 3 keywords so buyers, me, and others in the community can remember who you are, or begin to learn who you are and see if there might be a connection or a synergy. And also let us know if you're open to connections on LinkedIn. I'm absolutely open to connections on LinkedIn from anybody in the GovCon space. So reach out, connect with me, and certainly let others know if you're open to that. Last thing is I just wanted to thank the sustaining members of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. with your support, we're able to put out things like this directory and keep it updated frequently throughout the year. And so through your support, we're able to do that because we don't get funding from the federal government. We don't get funding from large primes. We're self-funded through the sustaining membership. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all the small businesses out there and everybody else actually who are benefiting from this work that we do and the training we provide. Okay, so let's dive into talking about, I want to talk about two main things, leading indicators and lagging indicators as it relates to sales. And the reason I want to talk about these is because they impact the KPIs I want to share with you today and how you can look at your pipeline and put it in a place that it can be measured on a regular basis. So leading indicators are things that are predicting future success. I want to give you 7 examples here. So LinkedIn engagement, right? These are no particular order, but LinkedIn engagement, one that just popped up for me right away. This is a leading indicator. If you put stuff out on LinkedIn and you begin to get people to engage with you, then pretty soon that's an indicator that you've reached your buyer or you're reaching your buyer and you want to do more of that. So LinkedIn engagement to me is not just your engagement with somebody else, but your ability to get your buyers and teammates to begin to engage with your content. If you're not getting engagement, then you need to look at what you put on LinkedIn and say, well, am I putting stuff out there that is what related to what we do so that people begin to engage with my content? Calls made. So this one's just fundamental, right? How often are you picking up the phone? In the 7-step process for federal success that we teach, outreach is step 3. And so that's the calls being made. You're picking up the phone, calling new people, you're leaving voicemails, sending emails, etc. But you're doing this outreach. You should be doing a certain amount of calls every single day. Don't measure it on weeks. The leading indicator, am I doing a certain amount of calls every single day? Averaging, for example, 5 or 25 a day. If you're a full-time business developer or capture, you should be making 25 calls minimum every single day new. You set aside an hour, you do those calls, and then you move on with the rest of the activity for your day. But when you do that, that's a great leading indicator to the relationships you're going to have and the meetings you're going to have. So introduction meetings are the output of making those calls in bullet number 2. If you're making calls, you're going to have introduction meetings, but introduction meetings are a great leading indicator of your success, because if you're able to get in and meet with strategic teaming partners you might be able to subcontract under, or agency buyers getting into the program office, et cetera, if you're able to have these meetings, that is showing you and the company that, hey, we're doing the right things that are going to lead to success. Number 4, strategic relationships established, right? How many strategic relationships do you have established? And you want to measure that. And strategic relationships are ones where you have recurring meetings scheduled. Every 2 weeks, you're touching base with somebody. If it's a federal buyer person, maybe you've got them on a rotation every 4 weeks. But every 2 to 4 weeks is how often you should be contacting somebody who's in that strategic relationship stage or state. And that's step number 4 in our 7-step process, right? When you have strategic relationships, that leads to sales success, because when you have an opportunity you need to ask questions about, you want to shape that opportunity, you can go back to those strategic relationships. So you want to have a certain amount of strategic relationships available. I've done a lot of training on strategic relationships, and I talk about exactly how many you should have. So go watch that previous training. Opportunities in the sales pipeline, right? This is a fundamental leading indicator of your sales success. How many opportunities do you have in the pipeline, and how many at different stages will tell you how likely you are to succeed going forward in reaching your revenue goals. And so we'll expand on that further in a minute. But winning proposal scores. So I said death to the P-win, right? And the reason is because, and you'll see me actually bring P-win back, but too many of us use P-win, probability of winning score, or percentage, or whatever you want to do. We use P-wins as if it's an indicator of the work we're doing. It's not. But a winning proposal score is what I coined and I created. And it really is just defined around your capture activities. Are you doing the right things on opportunities to move that opportunity closer and closer to a win for you, right? That's the fundamentals of capture, is shaping an opportunity so that you have the best chance of winning it, right? And so the leading indicator will be how, looking at your winning proposal scores across your pipeline, do you see them increasing, right? It's not that hard to look at it. Is that number higher than it was last week or last month, right? If you don't see your winning proposal scores going up, then there's a really good chance you're not doing the activities that will increase it. And those two things tell you that you're probably not going to be winning as much as you want. But if your winning proposal scores are going up, then you can predict that success is going to go up. And the last one I want to talk about are conversion rates. And so this is, and I'll show you more detail in a minute, but basically we're talking about if you put an opportunity into your pipeline and it's unqualified and you move it to qualified, how many of the opportunities that were unqualified, you're doing some work on them, how many of them converted to qualified? The reason that kind of thing is important is because you start getting, the better you can get that percentage, you have a higher percentage moving forward to the next stage. The better you can make that happen, it means the better you are at identifying opportunities. And it's the same stage or same thing with each stage. As you go from stage to stage, maybe in the beginning, 1 out of every 10 opportunities moves to the next stage. But eventually it should be 1 out of every 2, or maybe 2 out of every 3 kind of thing, right? You're increasing that. And so you want to look at your conversion rates both on the capture stages moving forward, as well as just opportunities in the pipeline, what percentage converts to a sale, to a contract award, right? So those are leading indicators that are really important. And I'll show you how I track them in a graphic in a handout. So we'll take a look at that. But these are the ways to predict your future success. If you're following along with what I said, do me a favor, in the chat, pause for a second and put leading indicators into the chat or comments. So those were leading indicators talking about future success, and then lagging indicators are really afterwards, right? It's kind of measuring that success. And so I just wanted to throw down 4 quick examples, and I'd welcome anybody wanting to say, here's more examples of lagging indicators. But the whole idea is, are you recognizing the revenue that you want? If you're getting the revenue that you want, especially new revenue kind of quarterly instead of one big, huge contract, but new revenue, let's say quarterly there, that revenue recognized will be a lagging indicator of whether sales efforts are done correctly. Another lagging indicator that will lead to contract awards and the number of proposals you've got out the door and are waiting for award, right? So that's a lagging indicator of the efforts that you've done. At least you've got them out the door. Sometimes we struggle even to get proposals out the door. Eventually you want more and more of those proposals to win, but at the moment we celebrate the fact that we even got them out the door. And a very obvious lagging indicator of sales effort success is contracts awarded, right? Whether it's subcontracting or prime, contracts awarded is a clear sign of we're doing the right thing in our sales efforts. And so we want to keep increasing that. This is where I was talking about, you don't want to measure one big sale value. You want to measure the number of times we're winning. Are we winning, at least once a quarter? And that's a reasonable expectation, right? You might not be at it yet, but you should expect to win a new contract at least once a quarter, subbing prime. Eventually, you should be expecting to get it once a month. And the whole reason, it's just a quick sidebar, the whole reason you can do it once a month is because for the 2 years previous, you've been doing all the right things and you've done enough activity and you've really got a handle on your pipeline movement that you are able to sit there and predict that there's going to be something once a month, because maybe you've got 4 proposals potentially being awarded in that particular month you're thinking about. Well, if you've got 4 for every month, you can eventually predict that you're going to have 1 a month. It's not, don't worry about where you're at or where you're going so much as measure where you're at and track the progress. Last one I wanted to give you is customer retention. And this is measured in 2 main ways. One is with option years, right? Making sure you have the option years coming forward. For service delivery, the people delivering on the project or the contract, they're responsible for profit and loss, right? And profit is maximizing, let's say, billable rate or profit margins in there, but loss is maybe not spending the 10 million that you had for that contract year or 1 million, right? And then it's also about losing the option year. So throughout the year, you can't just take those option years for granted. So customer retention is really important in that sense. And it's also important in the recompete. You should be looking out, right? Frequently, businesses get caught up in losing the recompete, and it generally is because they take it for granted. And so as important as new sales is, customer retention or that recompetition or recompete is vital in there. So these are just some lagging indicators as you go forward. I'm going to move into the sales pipeline, and I want to show you about that. But if you understand leading indicators and lagging indicators here, and these lagging ones I'm talking about, put those in and let me know that you're just tracking. So put lagging indicator into the chat. So I want to dive into the pipeline. I talked about this earlier in this week in training, and I talked about it many, many other times in the training we've done. If you're not aware, we've done over 300 trainings since March last year. And so a ton of training out there that you can find, and many of it is on the sales pipeline. But I do it in different ways. And so Yesterday, the day before, I was talking about it in text. Here, I want to show it a lot more visually. And instead of some animated thing, I just want to walk you through. It kind of goes from the top to the bottom to the top to the bottom, right? And walk with me if you can. I'm going to quickly explain the pipeline worksheet here that I use. And just to give you a heads up, then I'm going to come to this sheet and show you how to manage your numbers even a different way. So this one here, when an opportunity comes in and it looks like a fit, it's in an unqualified stage. And what we're really trying to do is qualify it, basically confirming that our company is a fit for it. And I call that gate 0, right? You can call things pretty much anything you want. But I call it gate 0 because gate 1's got a little bit more effort to it. But you see these stages 1 and 2. I call that business development because what you're really trying to do is find opportunities that are slam dunk opportunities for your company and get it in the pipeline. What I have found, and the reason I use this unqualified, is I found a lot of people doing a lot of work, salespeople, on opportunities to qualify them before they get them in the pipeline. And the reason this is bad is because no one knows you're working. And what I was teaching business developers and capture managers is get those opportunities in the minute you think they're worth anything, and you're going to be spending any amount of time, like an hour, for example. Because if you start spending an hour here and an hour here, that adds up to 8 hours to 40 hours, right? And you and your company want to track on the fact that you're looking at these opportunities. And it also helps you begin to figure out, well, why did so few of the opportunities move forward to qualified, as an example? So I'm going to come back to these green numbers, ignore them for 1 second. But then from stage 2 to stage 3, this is the gate 1 area, and you're going from qualified opportunities to pursue. And I'm not going to go in the depth of how to do that. I've done many trainings on how. But what I wanted to point out is that when you're going from qualified to pursue, right here, I've got gate 1, 1 out of 3. What this means is at the moment, this baseline, and your numbers can go up or down either way. This baseline, it's a great baseline, by the way. Use it if you don't have anything else and then adjust as you go forward. But 1 out of 3, what it means is 1 out of 3 qualified opportunities that I have, and I start reaching out to the client, trying to get more information to go to pursue, 1 out of 3 will move forward to pursue. And 2 of them will be abandoned. They'll be abandoned because once I got in there, I find out that, the opportunity is not real, or I dig more into it. It's like really not fit for us, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'm saying 2 out of the 3 will be abandoned. So as I move forward, right, I've got 1 out of 3, and it's the same ratio as you see going forward from pursue to bid. And you'll notice on the bottom, and I know I'm going at it a real fast pace, somewhere down the line of, if people want, I can do a much more advanced training, like 8 hours of capture development or capture management. But the idea is unqualified and qualified are business development. Pursue and bid are capture. This is where you're working with the customer to shape that opportunity so you can win. And so the likelihood of moving a pursued opportunity or opportunity in the pursue stage to the next stage, which is bid, is 1 out of 2. Every 2. What I'm saying is for every 2 opportunities that reach pursue, 1 of them will move forward to bid. 1 of them, something will happen, right? Blah, blah, blah. And so you can see that pattern going forward. On gate 3, you've got it in bid. You're doing pre-proposal activities. You're working on team agreement. You're doing solutioning, whatever. But what I'm saying is gate 3, the proposal is going to drop. The RFP will drop. And 1 out of 2 of what's in bid will move forward for multiple reasons. You don't have enough time because you have too many opportunities in the pipeline. Somebody on your team just blew it off and said, I'm out of here. The RFP changed significantly and you don't want to be part of it anymore. Whatever it is, right? 1 out of 2 will move forward and 1 won't. And that'll move into proposal and you win it. And the idea is when you write proposals, it could be the same thing because sometimes you work a lot on a proposal and then something happens and you're just not moving it forward. So you might start the proposals. And by the way, my numbers are very conservative. I'm doing it here on purpose for it to be very conservative. And so you can see the pattern here going from proposal to awaiting award to lose. The reason this is important, and before I go to this next slide, is that I want you to see these green numbers. Based on these ratios that I'm saying, 1 out of 3 opportunities in qualified will move forward in the pipeline. I'm saying 1%, 1.03% of your qualified opportunities will win. So theoretically, if you look at your pipeline and there's, let's say, $100 worth of opportunities, $1 will move forward. So when I'm predicting the revenue, $1 of it is moving forward. And it's the same thing as we move forward. You can see I'm being very conservative here in my numbers. And the reason I'm saying 25% up here, awaiting award, is because I'm making the assumption that when I get to a really good state, 1 out of every 4 proposals that I have submitted and I'm waiting on will be a win. If you can't get at least 1 out of 4, something's wrong and you need to look at your process and improve it. But if you can get 1 out of 4, you can begin to get down to 1 out of 3. Anything more than 1 out of 3 is unrealistic, right? It's direct award. It's contract vehicle doesn't invite people. That's unusual. But a normal thing below 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3, that's pretty aggressive, really aggressive, independent of what anybody says out there. Okay, so let's move it into here about looking at the pipeline, but looking at it a little bit differently. So over on the left-hand side in this box, I'm talking about the chances of moving an opportunity forward through the pipeline. So when an opportunity comes in, what I'm saying is that it has a 33% of moving forward. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Moving forward in the pipeline, and we continue to work on it compared to abandon. It's either moving forward or we abandon it. And so 33% of it is qualified. Then I say basically after that, 50% chance if it's in pursue, if it's in bid, or if it's in proposal, 50% chance that it'll go forward, and 50% chance we'll abandon it. This is important because it gives me my percentage ratio right below this, where I say weighted value by stage. And I know this is a little bit crazy math, but basically what I'm saying is if an opportunity is in qualified and 1 out of 3 move forward, then that one moves forward, but now it has a 50% chance. And then it moves forward and it has a 50% chance. Its chance of survival is slim, right? It's 1%. But the idea is as you start moving forward, the chance of survival gets bigger and bigger. These numbers can absolutely increase. They should be significantly increased. For example, for me, in my last company, when I had bid, it was 100% moving forward. I knew I was moving forward. When I had proposal, it was 100%. I was never unaware of the opportunity that when it came out, an RFP, I was like, oh my gosh, things have changed. Capture is about knowing what's going to change and having those relationships. So right now it's really conservative, but you can see this percentage. In the middle, you just see it as a dollar value. And right here, I'm basically saying the P win, this percentage win over here, 1% or 6% or 25%, it's over here. And so if I'm looking at those percentages divided by the total contract value, which I know I'm beginning to lose you, but you should be able to track that. And I want to slow down because I'm doing this so fast. I'm going to do this handout, right? So if you're in this training live today, I'll give it to you. Otherwise, it's only available to the sustaining members. But if you're in this training and you're hanging out listening to me talk about the math, I'll give you this because inside of this worksheet that I hand out, it's actually got a spreadsheet. And then you just plug your numbers in and it becomes really easy. Me explaining it in a couple of minutes is pretty hard. But basically, what I'm trying to say is I don't want to have a pipeline to go, oh, that pipeline has $4 billion in value. What I want is a realistic expectation. And so $4 billion quickly becomes $40 million pipeline. Like I have $4 billion worth of opportunities in the pipeline, but the likelihood of me winning anything is like 4 million or 40 million, depending on how big you are, right? And so it's much lower. This is facing reality about the likelihood of winning opportunities going forward. But how do you do it, right? And so just putting some metrics in there and some weights, you'll be able to do it. And so anyways, one other thing I just want to show you as it relates to that is if you look at the bottom, you can see that I lay out a sheet. And Gus, if we've got another training where I spent longer explaining this one sheet, I want to do it because I'm starting to realize it's a lot of information for one 30-minute session. And so I'll try to do either another session or just a whole course for the sustaining members. But the idea that I want you to see is that down here, I have pipeline value, right? PV. And the idea is here, it's pipeline value is sitting in there. Over here, it's total contract value, and proposal value. But you can see me walking it back. And what I'm trying to say in here is that if you want to make 5 million, start on the right-hand side, then you need to win a $25 million sale because most contracts are 5 years, right? So $5 million a year gets you that 5 million in 2023 revenue. If you want to win a $25 million sale, you need to submit $100 million worth of total contract value out there because of that 25% win rate. And then backing that up, in order for you to get 25% win rate there of 100 million, you need at least $200 million in proposal value. These are the proposals you're writing and getting out the door. I recognize that what I'm talking about is super complicated, and I want to come back and do another training on this. So let me know in the chat if you want to learn more about this, you just like it at a slower pace, because even me listening to you, I'm like, all right, this is pretty aggressive for me to push into 30 minutes. But if you're interested and you put it into the chat, I'll do kind of an invitation only one where the people who are interested, I'll walk through this and maybe we'll take an hour and just go through this, actually using examples for your company or something like that. Okay, so the one thing though to really remember, even though we got to the sales pipeline and those KPIs that I want you to track on the leading indicators, right? Because they're going to tell you if you're doing the right thing, and make sure you're measuring those right things. I gave you 7 examples. And then lagging indicators, right? These are proving that you're doing the right thing. And when you track on those, you'll be able to look back. If you're not seeing the results you want, you'll be able to look back and identify where in your process you might be having challenges, that if you fix those challenges, you'll start having the success that you want. So again, that's what we talked about. The quick task I have for you is take a minute and go look at your leading indicators and say, am I actually tracking leading indicators? Am I tracking the number of new phone calls I make every single day? So I'm making at least 5, for example. All right, so if you get value from these trainings, become a sustaining member today. By the way, don't forget to download the directory, the May 2023 directory of small business professionals, small business specialists, OSABUs, et cetera, SBLOs from large primes. That's on our website. You can go download that for free, but it's a new updated version. It's awesome. If you're already making money and you want to go to the next level, you want help with things like I was just explaining, consider our BD Accelerator. It's a 90-day workshop that accelerates your BD activity and capture activity. But it's for companies already making some traction, having some traction. Ping me on LinkedIn if you're interested. And remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process.